not necessarily what's going on the inside. So it's very, very easy to look at people and say they're really attractive, they look like they fit in, and actually maybe they don't. So these conversations help people who are supposedly, they even have more pressure because they look like they fit in, they're supposed to fit in, they're not supposed to have diversity and inclusion issues, but they might not. So that's where these conversations start. They start everybody opening up like that girl who probably looked like she was the prettiest girl, no problems, and she had so much going on inside. So I think it's really cool. So thank you for sharing that story.
It's not mine, but she's amazing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing her story.
Yeah, no, I would love, I'm trying to get her to do something amazing because I'm like, other young children need to hear the story because kids and anxiety, it's such a difficulty, but parents also really need to hear that story so that they understand mental illness and the differences with children in terms of how they behave based on what's going on for them. And there's a new book that Vodafone is sponsored that just came out called Headphones actually. It's helping to do that. I'm reading it to my son every night and it's amazing for exploring how children navigate just even primary school stuff of like, you know, I fell and then this boy is calling me a name and then when she goes home how that feels and the fact that nobody wants to talk to her anymore and all of a sudden you're the joke. Just these little tiny things. You go home and tell your mom, she'd be like, oh, you're fine. You know, and you have to understand how horrible that feels because to them it's their whole world.
It's their world is different.
Exactly.
So it's being able to stand in their shoes. It doesn't matter if they're 10, 20, 75. Then in some way you can try to stand in their shoes and then you start to see things from their perspective. So it might be a very small step, but we can all make an effort to do it. So I think it's
and Gearoid, did I pronounce it right?
Gearoid.
Gearoid. Oh, Gearoid, sorry. I think I still did it wrong. I'm really bad at names. I'm really bad at pronouncing them, so I'm really sorry.
It's an Irish name.
In relation to people with disabilities and employment, this is something one of my good friends in PwC has a disability and he just started. He doesn't have his arm stopped here, and he just does everything the same. His laptop is the same. I think he was born that way, so he's not had to navigate this. He does everything the same as everybody else. He doesn't have prosthetic limbs. If anything, he goes out of his way to kind of make sure that everyone knows it's fine. You don't need to help me with all my bags and everything. And he was saying how he was so surprised walking around the IFC that he hadn't seen one person with a wheelchair in the year that he'd been there, or he was surprised he hadn't seen more people with visible differences, visible disabilities, and I suppose it got me thinking because then I know that TCD run a project where they try to link people with disabilities with employers, and they have a real difficulty doing that as well. And well, if the private sector are doing it, do you feel that the public sector have any sort of responsibility here to support people with disabilities in employment?
Yes, so the public sector, we're talking about 6% is the quota for the public sector with disabilities. But with people not disclosing, it's a major issue, and there's definitely an example that can be set there. But like as you said, with the guy that he was walking around PwC and he wasn't noticing people with disabilities, when you talk to someone about a disability, it's generally they jump, like Sandra was saying, to the wheelchair or visible disability. But unfortunately, 10-11% of the population have an invisible disability. So like take for example myself, white male, from Kerry, I have 2 disabilities. One's an intellectual disability with dyslexia, and the other one is where my body for some reason got rid of my adrenal gland. And this is a gland that produces cortisol, so it's your fight or flight. So if someone hit me, I wouldn't hit them back. So as a child, this made me a very quiet child. I've never punched someone in my life, which is a major strength. And playing football and that, I wouldn't be hyper aggressive. How it's going to affect me in the workplace is that my lifespan is about 16 or 17 years less than someone that doesn't have it. So that's 2 disabilities for a software developer that's going to be up in front of working on teams. So it's very challenging for both the public and private sector to get this right when they don't know a lot about these disabilities.
And so how do you think that how do you feel that is the right way to help us get that right, and how to try to figure out that balance and just encourage more people, because I mean, it breaks my heart that there's people out there who aren't getting jobs because of disabilities, when having a job is such a crucial part of keeping your sanity, like having somewhere to get up and go every day, and being part of this family of a workforce and drinks and just being able to participate in society properly. A huge part of that is being able to have a job if you want one, you know?
Yeah, it's our purpose. It's the reason we get up in the morning. And if you don't give someone that purpose, it's very, very challenging. And I think the Irish kind of thing is, oh sure, it's grand. Like when I've often told people that I have dyslexia, it's like, oh sure, it's grand, you know, it's fine. It comes to Addison's and it's like, yeah, it's grand. Some people don't actually believe me when I tell them that I have dyslexia and Addison's. And I actually have to convince them that I do. And it's like, no, sure, you come in, you give documents that don't have, like I used to tell my lectures of the disabilities, I just said, no, I'll do it. And there was actually one day I was talking to a guy, and I graduated with computer science, and he came out with a statement that said that dyslexic people cannot be software developers because they can't spell. So when you're writing code, the spelling is quite it's simple. They're small words. The words are never more than probably 7 or 8 letters. You do have to spell colour wrong. You have to spell it the American way. So when I'm spelling documents now, so if you get a document from me with colour spelled C-O-L-O-R, it's because in HTML, which when you're making websites, that's how you have to spell it. But yeah, it's that understanding that people can achieve things with a disability, and that it doesn't hold them back, and that's a key thing.
Do you guys have any thoughts to add on that in relation to how we bridge that gap, especially specifically with disabilities?
I think again it's showing the value that they bring to organisations. This comes back to again that everybody has something different to bring. So I think as you take dyslexia as an example, the dyslexic brain works very differently and looks at things in a very different perspective. So if dyslexic people were taught as they grew up that they just have a different way of looking at things, and that's very valuable, and they offer different solutions, they show bigger picture thinking, they add a lot to whether it's creative thinking, whether it's brainstorming, no matter what it is. If they were brought up that way, this was not a disability, that was just a different kind of ability, then companies would see it very differently. So I think at the moment there's an idea that it's a disability and people hide it. So it's about changing people's perspective on it, but it's something that happens slowly. It's not something that happens really, really quickly. And it is about, I guess again, going back to the small companies, going back to the small organizations, we can start with them, because innovation comes from people thinking differently. Not looking inside the HTML, not looking inside the box, looking outside the box. And creative brains, dyslexic brains are really, really good at doing that. So by sharing the benefits, we can build more into it.
Yeah, just to add a couple of points around the public sector aspect of that question. So, Rowan mentioned there 6% is the public sector duty. So, I think the government does recognise that the public sector has to lead in this particular area. And one of the biggest challenges is around people not reporting. So, most disabilities are hidden disabilities, whether they could be physical, but people are still hiding them. So it's around how do you encourage people to self-identify, because you can't ask somebody a question around a disability. So therefore it's extremely difficult for organisations to report, and it's extremely difficult then for organisations to create role models and start to kind of build their knowledge and experience around supporting people with disabilities. I heard a stat a little while ago that there's 18,000 people with disabilities in Ireland that are educated at 3rd level and they cannot get jobs. 18,000. So highly educated workforce that we're not tapping into. And I think the organisation that's responsible for kind of leading on and policing the public sector duty is IREC. Have you heard of them? The Irish Human Rights and Equalities Commission. And they have been given the powers to audit public sector. So the target, I think, was 3 or 4%. It's now gone up to 6%. That target is going to be increased to 9%. I don't know what the time frame is, but in a very short time frame. And they've been given the powers to audit public sector organisations if they don't feel like that they have a strategy. So one of the things that's happening is every public sector organisation has to produce a publish report on their website that shows how their strategy around supporting people with disabilities is part of their strategic plan. And secondly, they have to produce an annual report highlighting how they are supporting and delivering on their public sector duty related to people with disabilities. And if they're not doing that, what we're going to start seeing now is IREC coming after those organisations to start auditing them. So it is being taken very seriously. It's unfortunate that we're 2018 and we're only kind of getting to that now. But anyway, we're getting there. A part of the project that we're doing around encouraging self-identification, one aspect of that is around bringing in the questions and making sure that we're supporting public sector organisations as well to encourage self-report and self-identification, and to, when people do disclose, have some case studies. Like I remember ESB, Bernie O'Connor leads on D&I in there, and she was telling me about one of her employees at 50 decided to disclose that he was dyslexic, and he said, I can't believe I didn't do this before. I have been trying to hide that my whole life, and you wouldn't believe the pain involved in me trying to hide that from the organisation. And all I had to do was say it. And now that I've told you and I've said it, now they have workshops around dyslexia and everybody knows what it's all about. And he is now an advocate for people in the workplace with dyslexia, goes out and tells his personal story. So we need more of them. And part of the toolkit for us is reaching into organisations. We have Deloitte, ESB, IBM, Google, Indeed, and DCU will be part of the proof points and the research as part of that research, and to try and encourage people to tell their personal stories, because I think that will give employers a bit more confidence around that it's not around spending 50 grand to widen doors and put in ramps, right? It doesn't, maybe that's part of your plan in the next 5 to 7 years when you're replacing your doors or moving buildings, but there's so many other things you can be doing around supporting people with disabilities in the workplace, and we're hoping that our research will lead on that.
Amazing. So on that note, I'm going to end. Thank you all so much for listening, and I mean, we could possibly open up to one question. Yeah, perfect. So we'll open up the floor to one question.
My name is Bilal and I have a small business. Most of the talk has been around corporates, larger offices, enterprises. Where do you see inclusion and diversity in SME sector where there are 4 or 5 people? My personal experience has been coming from non-Irish background, being immigrant, entrepreneur. I have suffered getting in front of people. I'm not a corporate. I don't have huge department. I have a small amount of people. Where do you see this could be eliminated, or how we can progress in this sector, in SME?
And do you mean getting access into organisations?
Yes, getting like a customer base, or getting to have a customer base, sell to other businesses, because I'm B2B.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think a lot of the research around one of the challenges for people who are non-Irish, like one of the downsides, and it certainly is back to the point I made about being an ally, is around we don't have the network. Like I lived in London for 11 years, and when I came back to Ireland 12 years ago now, I think it is, I didn't really know anybody here. I knew people in the telecoms industry, but I didn't know my way into any, I wasn't connected to anything. And it's taken me 12 years of hard work and of pushing doors and connecting and being good with my time. I think is something that certainly helped me. So I think it's back to that point around allyship and being at events like this and asking for referrals, I think is really important. And I certainly do that, right? If I've met somebody and I think somebody else needs a connection, I'll do that. But I think and asking for that, right?
I take that point, and I'm into networking a lot. I mean, I know more people in last 1 year than I knew in the last 10, 11 years. Due to networking, that's fact. But when you're going to approach directly to the businesses or customers, because if you're looking for referrals, that might be 1/10 of your progress. Whereas if you're doing direct marketing or approaching customers, you can grow that way 10 times than referrals. So your growth is very, very limited through network.
Yeah, Well, I think you probably have the same issue as anybody. Like I've worked in sales, I led SME sales for Vodafone, and that's the pain, right? So that's not just the pain you're feeling, that's a hyper competitive market. In Ireland, what I would say is people buy from people, right? And I know you're talking about direct marketing and all of that kind of thing. So I suppose it's about, getting a bit more creative around, leveraging referrals and leveraging your networking to try and get out into the mass and being more targeted, I think. Maybe whether that's targeted around a particular vertical or the personalization of your content and things like that. So I think that's not exclusive to you and your industry. I think that's just the market that we live in. And the one extra, the added on piece is in Ireland. We're very relationship driven. And that's what I found when I was in London. I could build up relationships with 10 people in the organisation, but the minute it came to try and sell something, I was moved to procurement. And now I had to follow this process in procurement. And that was fine. I knew the rules. Everybody competed. It's not the way it is in Ireland. Yeah. Because John knows Jack, who knows John, who knows Mary, who knows, yeah. And you might be over here going through the tender process because you don't know anybody, and then somebody else gets the. So I think the context of Ireland is important, and personalisation and building the network. And I remember reading a book called Never Eat Alone. Keith Ferrazzi, I think. Has anyone ever read that?
It's amazing.
It's a brilliant, it's a small little book, and it's around effective networking. And one of the things I picked up on that was always ask people what we can do for them. And that has been my networking strategy every time. Yep. And when I meet somebody, I stopped trying to sell what I was doing and who I was and where, and I spent more time finding out what are they doing and what can I do. And it has absolutely worked. So, I know that probably doesn't answer your question. Certainly won't help me sell more things tonight, but hopefully there's a few key points in that.
It's amazing. Yeah, no, it's definitely all around building relationships. More?
More.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions? Yeah.
Hello. You mentioned a couple of different sectors, so corporate, public sector, and also SME as well. What are your experiences or thoughts around the gig economy? Because obviously a lot of digital companies, instead of being inclusive, they're actually almost pushing that sector of their technically workforce away from a lot of the support that you normally get as a traditional corporate. So just what are your thoughts on that? Is obviously that's a growing part of the workforce.
Yeah, I think that I just a couple of points on that again around back to the point around generational diversity. So I think one of the differences we're starting to see with Gen Z compared to millennials is it's that connection in the workplace, right? So what we're finding is that Gen Z are the ones that are leading on the gig economy, and what we'll find is the likes of Fiverr and this type of working practice. What we're going to find is that the Gen Zs are leading on that. So they don't need the connection, the physical connection in the workplace, because they're happy enough with their friends and the groups that they have around them at the moment. And what you'll start to see is they're less connected to an organisation, and what they'll start doing is they might have 5 or 6 jobs. Like to the point around being a software developer, it's impossible to get somebody to do software development now because they want to be a consultant, they want to be out on their own, and they're happy enough then to maybe have 5 or 6 different jobs. And so I think workforces are going to have to adapt. It's going to be a very different workplace. And I suppose we start to look at our policy and practice around one particular thing in particular, which is flexibility. And we're not great at that in Ireland. I think England are probably 10 years ahead of us around flexible working and adopting best practice and flexibility of people who want to work in that way. And we haven't. And what's created now is a shortage in the workforce, because instead of organisations tapping into the gig economy and saying, well, you know what, actually I will bring on in a software developer, even though I'm a large corporate, for that 6-month project, and let her move on or let him move on. They're not embracing it. So now there's a shortage then of people who do want to work for the big organisations that don't have the flexibility. So I think that's probably going to be the tipping point now of where things will change. It's that generation that are going to drive those types of working practices.
And just to add one tiny little point to that around flexibility, I know everyone's dying to get home, but I think that it's a huge thing that we're pushing in my organisation, where you literally could not pay some of the men in there to use the option because they're scared of what it could mean. And so there is something about breaking that fear, starting to have a conversation with your peers as well around flexibility. Like, I want to go home and see my daughter, you know, like that's okay. Or I want to share my paternity leave. I want to have shared paternity leave with my wife, so I can spend 3 months at home with my kid. Like, men want to see their kids too. And so you know, it's around having those conversations to encourage more flexibility within an organisation for it to become the norm. Central Bank, their head at the moment works flexibly, and they've seen a massive uptake in terms of people working flexibly because he's leading from the top, and that's the first time I think they've ever had a CEO that's a man anyways kind of using that flexibility option. And I'm going to shut up now, and thank you all so much for coming, and have a lovely evening.